Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL.
Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partners in crime, Anthony Prohaska and Aaron Quinn. I don't know if I've ever needed Uncle Jumbo's more than after this game, but I got alerts from my watch that I had an alarming heart rate. This game was not good for my health. Anthony, how was the game for you?
Emotionally and mentally, I'm in a decent spot. Physically, not so good. So as you know, I'm superstitious. So the Bills go down. I'm trying to figure out different positions on the couch, and I find a spot that works. I got my right knee up.
That you're positively influencing the game with your positioning.
1,000%. That's the
reason.
Right
around halftime, you found a new.
No, it was later, towards the end of the third, start of the fourth.
All right.
Ballpark. I got my right knee up. I got my left foot tucked behind my right leg. I stay in this position for the whole fourth quarter. I have to pee terribly bad. I am not moving because the Bills are driving. The Bills are making things work offensively and defensively. I'm also doing a thing with my left hand where when the Bills are on offense, I got it here. When the Bills are on defense, I got it here. I'm not kidding. I'm dead serious. So my right foot is horribly numb. Bills lose. I'm furious. Grab the remote. I turn off the TV. I get up to go pee. My right foot is a brick. I cannot feel it. I step. I almost fall down. Legitimately. I also have an ottoman in front. I can't really get around it. I drag my foot to the bathroom to go pee. My left foot's also not in great shape. I pee all over the floor because I have no balance. Then because to get on the post game, I leave it. I go. I run. And as I run, I tell my wife, I left the toilet seat open as a reminder that there's pee all over the floor and I have to clean it. Don't go near it. Don't worry. I'll take care of it. And then I came over here, sat down, and here we are. So physically, I'm not in a great way. My right foot is a little tingly.
Your wife may have left you.
She may be gone. She may be gone. She's not pleased at all. I was like, yeah, there's pee. And she was like, what? And I was like, gotta go. And she
can't explain it.
Yeah. I was like, I'll tell you later.
I don't have time for these kind of details. So, yeah. Aaron, how are you doing? Can you top that?
My watch had some curve to it in the upward direction on my heart rate monitor as well tonight. But you know what, man? At halftime, I thought that show was going to suck. I thought that we were going to come on here and have a similar experience that we had last week where it was just kind of down and we have to sort of talk ourselves off the ledge. And while it's a loss, and that's really ultimately what matters at the end of the year here, this game, tale of two halves. I feel way better coming on to talk to you guys about this and this team and some of the narratives that are surrounding this team and some of the emotions that we all experience up and down throughout this game.
Yeah, and I'm going to kind of piggyback off of a great point that, Anthony, you had pre-show in that, all the stuff that we keep getting thrown at us of this team is soft. They're just not tough enough to do this. You are in the home of the defending champions. You are in Tom Brady's house with a 21-point lead. You get punched in the mouth with a first half that I was distraught and just completely out of it. And you then rally back and come back with critical defensive stops, excellent execution, protection for Josh Allen, all the things that you need to go on a run this season and come all the way back to where, don't get me wrong, we're going to have some talks about some of the coaching decisions, but that ultimately, some odd calls by the referees, a couple balls bouncing back their way. The Bills were in this game. A soft team does not come back from 21-0 on the road in Tom Brady's house. A soft team doesn't get the stops that they needed, holding Brady and those guys to field goals inside the 10-yard line when they had a chance to put this game away. A soft team does not put together those critical drives, breaking tackles, scrapping it together to play the way that they needed. That's not a soft team in this. Multiple guys obviously playing hurt. Josh Allen, none more than them. That's the kind of team that, keeps you coming back and keeps you bought in to where this season is going to go. So ultimately, you guys are here listening because this is a 33-27 overtime loss that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came out on top of the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills are 7-6, and 7-6 is not a place we thought we were going to be. But just like you said, Aaron, from the point that I was at about 6 p.m. at halftime to the point that I am now, I can see the path forward this season and what may be needed to be able to go back. And, Aaron, I think it all starts with the sign over your left shoulder. Talk a little bit about our man here and kick us off with the quarterback play.
Yeah, no, Josh Allen is our king. Great gutsy performance by Josh here in this game. I've been a little hesitant. At the beginning of this game was very frustrating to me because it looked like Brian Dable just got on Twitter and listened to every single thing that we all said on Twitter about what the Bills offense.
Let Josh cook.
Yeah, and it didn't go well. And it's because you can't just be one-dimensional, right? Like the Bills offense didn't get going into that run game, got going a little bit, but it opened up things for Josh. That is what is needed. That is what they talk about, this complementary football. Get the defense to get stops, get the ball in Josh Allen's hands, be able to run just a little bit so that they're not coming with their ears pinned back running at Josh. You saw
we got 9.1 yards per carry. Is that so hard? That's all I want every week.
Yeah, well, most of that was Josh. And I am a big person that's been on this weaponized Josh Allen train for years now. And I know that people want to get away from that and the risk of injury. And we saw that tonight. There's a real risk of injury when you run Josh Allen. I get that. But he's just as risk of injury getting hit in the pocket.
As a quick aside, the running backs actually amazingly also had exactly 9.1 yards per carry.
Did they?
Yes, it's just a very odd statistical amount.
Low amount of carries, all right? What are we?
64 yards on 7 carries.
Yes. So, but still, those runs early in that second half is really what changed the way the Bucs were able to play defense. And when you aren't one-dimensional, Josh Allen can really kill you. And we saw that in this game. Over 300 yards passing, 100 yards on the ground. This is the Josh Allen that I've been talking about, weaponize this guy, allow him to scramble when plays break down, get those first downs, use him as a runner in the designed run. So great game from Josh and gutsy performance, a bad first half. And for him to come out and you just saw the way he was running when those lanes hit. I haven't seen him run that fast. I want to see the next gen stats on how quick he was going. The will to win from this guy, it's up there with some of the best athletes I've ever seen in terms of how bad and what he's willing to do to get wins for this team. So he's the one I feel hardest for right now because he put everything out on that field tonight. And that dude, man, I've heard stories from NFL players what it's like to be in the NFL and get hit the way they do. That first half must have been a collision course for him, multiple car accident type of night for him. And then for him to come out in the second half and put together that performance, still just unbelievable. Hats off for him. I wish they would have got the win for Josh tonight, but I think he showed the whole world something about, his character and what the Bills like to call their DNA.
Yeah, if you look at this, Anthony, with the stat line of what he put up, you saw the graphic late in the game. Josh Allen, the 4th player in NFL history to have 300 yards passing and 100 yards rushing in the same game, ended up 36 of 54, so 67% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, the 1 interception on the throwaway that Richard Sherman got underneath, then 12 carries for 109 yards and another touchdown. Just a historic performance, bringing his team back in overtime to tie up Tom Brady down 21. What else can you even say about a guy like that?
Yeah, it's a shame that we didn't get the win with this because then Josh's performance is tied to this awesome comeback and this big win. And I feel like what he did in this game will get lost in the shuffle. Appreciate you, Justin. Thank you so much. But he really did. You mentioned the stat line, and from a scheme perspective, I love what Aaron mentioned, so the first 30 plays, 25 passes, 5 runs, and the Bills looked like the same inefficient Buffalo Bills that we've seen over the last several weeks. You have to incorporate some aspect of the running game. And I think it's no coincidence that as whether it was Josh or the running backs, as we started to mix in those successful runs, the way the defense played changed a little bit, the way the short and intermediate opened up a little bit. And Josh started to spearhead that, those QB runs, and weaponize Josh, as Aaron said, I thought was spot on. And, I think, Greg, you mentioned the stat line. Aaron, you mentioned from a scheme piece as well. So I don't want to dwell too much on it. The thing I really wanted to mention when it came to Josh was, Greg, you had I don't remember. It's a shame because we've had so many losses this year. I don't remember which loss you said this after, but the idea of the Bills are kind of a front running team. And when they go down, the team starts pressing, and it's like, are they soft or this and then all these types of things and that. And I think this game has 1,000%, quelled that narrative.
Not that we haven't had it previously, but this season, this was the first comeback this season.
Correct.
They had either jumped out and immediately boat raced teams 7 times, or they had either lost in frustrating fashion or in heartbreaking fashion at the end of the game. There had not been any back and forth tough haymaker games where they just scored last to win a game. It was either they kind of pulled away and just won definitively, or they lost in some fashion. Not that today ultimately counts as that. So it's right. Not, they did lose. But tonight was the first legitimate, like, hey, come back, able to stack things up, putting that together and going that route of, hey, we can do this.
1,000%. And I tweeted it out, like, they got punched in the mouth a bunch against arguably the best team in the NFL in their house. They said it God knows how many times, but they're 5-0 at home this year, 8-0 in their last 8 at home, including the Super Bowl, yada, yada, all this. You're playing Brady. The defense is back and healthy for Tampa. They're full of studs, down 24-3. You claw your way back. And this team, for better or for worse, Eric said it in the film room this week, the offensive philosophy of the Bills is Josh Allen. That's what it is. It's not even passing or spread. It's Josh Allen. That's this team as a whole.
You open the playbook, it's just various pictures of Josh Allen, like a centerfold calendar. It'd be like, hey, like sometimes he's got like an academic look, and he's got like a turtleneck on.
He's got his glasses off like this, and he's like, all those different types of things. This team, for better or for worse, goes with him. When he presses and gets all finicky, the team presses and gets all finicky. Today, he got banged up. His ankle rolled. It looked gross. He was limping out on the field. Yeah, he gutted it out.
He's not going to feel good tomorrow.
No, he gutted it out. This team gutted it out. And that's the big thing. The numbers are good. And the scheme and the execution piece is something we'll dissect as we get the all 22 and go forward a little more. But, that's funny, right, Richard, like a 13-year-old trapper keeper. That's what he looked like in those pictures. But he gutted it out, and the team fed off that. They fought like he did. It sucks, again, that we lost, but I am super proud of Josh's performance from an emotional standpoint, but also from an execution standpoint. And it's just it's nice to know. It sucks that we lost again, and we're 7-6, but I'm proud.
It sucks they lost, but did anyone pick the Bills to win this game?
No.
In their honest, unbiased opinion,
short of hoping or rooting.
It was close, and you want to walk away with a close win. But ultimately, I went into this weekend thinking, shoot, maybe we can get house money and get a win and pull ourselves out of this corner they backed themselves into. But ultimately, I assumed there was going to be a loss tonight. And what was real tough for me was the way they were losing at half. Was a defeating feeling, like, shoot, maybe we can't get over this hurdle and go on a run. But the way, there's no moral victories. I don't want anyone to come at me about moral victories. But finishing a game like this on the road against an uncommon opponent, against Tom Brady, there is some momentum that you swing into the last month of football. Correct. And I feel from that first half to the second half, the feeling of going forward totally changed, even with the loss.
Well, if you just take that first half, 24-3, and not that it was just going to end 48-6, but just a similar feel of the first half into the second half, and whatever the score was, but just similar control, dominance, just at no point ever really like in the first half,
maybe they got 10 more points or something.
Correct.
Right.
At no point was there ever any real threat that the Bills were in the game in the first half. If we continued in any sense of that, any combination of like, it was 10-10 in the second half and it ends up 34-13, and we just kind of go on our merry way. This comment from Rick Glazer, bringing up here, appreciate your contribution, Rick. I would not feel that way. I would feel like, oh man, are we going to win the 3 games that we need to even get in the playoffs? Like, we should beat Carolina, Atlanta, and the Jets, and I want another shot at the Patriots where it's not a freaking, historic weather event. But if we got dominated like that again and walked away 34-13, I'd be like, all right, maybe we got a shot.
And for those listening,
with that comeback, now his comment here, I still feel like they can run the table, and this game is a start in the right direction. I genuinely feel that way now. I agree with him. I think they can win the last 4 games. I think they can finish 11-6, and I think that they can go into the playoffs with a shot. That they're obviously not the dominant team that we had envisioned at the beginning of, home field advantage, absolute path to the AFC Championship game, most likely team to win the Super Bowl. Okay, that's off the table. It doesn't mean they can't get hot at the right time and get the right path of matchups in the playoffs and be able to go on a run when it matters.
If you're going to turn it around and right the ship, at some point you have to be able to have that first foundational piece and hang your hat on something to go forward. Ideally, it's a win. That would be fantastic. But there are several pieces to take. Yeah, there's sometimes it's these little moral victories, and it doesn't count the same as a W, and it sucks a lot less or a lot more. But
a handful of other games now, we're going to be doing a lot of scoreboard watching. Now the Pittsburgh loss, the Baltimore loss, the Cincinnati loss, all those games start to matter at this point. So, Aaron, as we move on, talk about the running game for all 7 carries of it.
Well, I was going to say, we just talked about Josh Allen, so I don't know how much we have to talk about the running game. No, actually, it's something I do want to talk about because, one, I've said it before, team weaponized Josh Allen. Give it to me. I love it. We got explosive plays out of this run game, and to me, that's what matters the most. I don't need to run the ball a lot. But when you do run it, I need to be able to generate some explosives. We saw Devin Singletary get loose with a nice explosive run. And again, for that stat line, like you mentioned, Greg, Devin Singletary had 4 carries for 52 yards, 13 was his average, and he had that 29-yard run. And then Matt Breida, 3 carries, 12 yards, 4 yards a carry. Maybe the only downside is I'm on with Pro Ant here is getting Matt Breida the ball more and trying to find ways to get him the ball. I would like to see that a little bit more. There was a couple where it looked like he was starting to get a little bit of a groove on one drive and he had a nice run and then sort of didn't see him the rest of the game. But
like on that fake punt, like we're almost.
Yeah, well, I think that was a bad call as well. If you're going to go for the fake punt, just go for it and let Josh Allen get the first down. But that's just me. But no, I think, not much to talk about in this run game. I don't think the offensive line's built for this team to run the ball 20 times with any of their backs. Josh Allen's going to have to participate in this run game for the rest of the year, unfortunately. I know a lot of people don't want to see him get hit. And Eric got that tape about the owners and Bean complaining about him getting hit. I don't care what anyone thinks. He's the biggest weapon of this offense. Anthony said it. The offense lives and dies by Josh Allen. He's got to be part of this run game going forward this year. I think they're just going to need it.
Complaining about Mike Tyson's technique on his jab. Like, it just ain't gonna be why we win.
In a perfect world, I want the offensive line to do better, and I want the running backs to be able to be efficient without him. But that's just not where we're living right now with the 2021 Bills. We need a little bit more of what Josh Allen brought to the table in his first 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, so this is going to be a completely unreasonable statement, but I'm going to make it anyways. If you could tell me that we could pass the ball 54 times every game and run the ball 7 times, but the 7 times we ran it with the running backs would get me 64 yards, sign me up every single game. Sure. Every single game. I'll take that every single game forever. That's literally in my twisted view of like game script and the balance that we want. That's what I want. I want 85-15, but the 15% I want to be like nice, efficient chunk plays with a 29-yard run, an 11-yard run, an 18-yard run. So that's unreasonable. That's not actually how.
And I want to be running the whole fourth quarter because we have the lead and
correct,
comfortable.
Yeah, 4-minute drill, milking the clock, all those kind of things. The reasons that you have inefficient runs late when you're playing the clock, not the yardage.
Right.
But Anthony, talk about the guys that really helped Josh here tonight with this receiver and tight end group, where probably the most balanced performance that I remember. So we're talking 7 for 74 from Diggs, 9 for 64 for Beasley, 7 for 60 and a touchdown for Knox, 5 and 43 for a touchdown for Davis, 6 and 37 for Singletary out of the backfield, 5 players with between 7 and 13 targets. Just a crazy balanced performance night from the receiving crew.
I was going to say, we normally go in this order anyway, but it's a nice transition going into wide receivers and tight ends by talking about the running backs, because I liked what Devin Singletary even offered in the passing game. Tampa Bay was giving that underneath. Josh dumped it out. or dumped it down to him several times. And he made a couple guys miss on some plays. He got stopped a couple other times, but he made some plays in the passing game. But this was I started thinking about all the plays in my head, and I'm just thinking about the 3 calls that should have been pass interference on Stephon Diggs. But Diggs gave it everything he could. He looked sharp in his route running. Cole Beasley started to look like Cole Beasley. That we need Cole Beasley. Yep, feed him. And you saw the emotion coming from him. And what I thought was nice from Cole Beasley in this game too is he was winning in space and getting open, but he also had several contested catches where guys were into his body, and it was kind of like a 50-50 ball, and he was ripping the ball away from defenders. He was gutting it out for the first down. And, we've all wanted more Gabriel Davis, sticking with the wide receivers. We saw him make more plays again in this game. I love the versatility he offers because of his run blocking ability and the formation and personnel, and alignment that the Bills can have on offense because of what Gabriel Davis offers. And then Dawson Knox, I want to get into a little more with coaching later, but we saw some creative ways to get him the ball. The nice one on that fourth quarter drive that tied it, the whole fake block, and then he pops the hips and turns right back. And that was a design call. Yep. Great sell. Great rhythm from Josh. And then we see what
I always get jealous seeing those leak calls from other teams. Why can't we do the leak? Yes. I like that. That's sneaky.
You see that the Eagles did it so much when Andy Reid was in Philadelphia. Go ahead, Aaron.
I've got to plug Left Earn. If you're not following Left Earn on Twitter, good account. They make great posters for the games. Anyways, private messages me every time that has happened. It's happened a couple times this year, and he has dubbed it Dawson's Leak.
That's funny. That's funny. I get it.
I'm a Dawson's Creek fan.
I'll allow it.
Yeah, Pacey was a legend. I'm a huge Dawson
Merry
Creek
Christmas to you, Jeffrey Danger,
Absolutely,
as well.
Merry
We appreciate you.
Appreciate Jeffrey. Thank you so much. Yeah, Knox looked good. Just ways to get the ball in a playmaker's hand and allow them to be a playmaker. The weaponry looked good tonight on the outside, talking about the wide receivers and the tight ends, and it needed to be. The Bills are down 24-3. You got to start finding the ways to get chunk plays. And I mean, granted, maybe you can tie it back to Josh, but the touchdown drives that the Bills had to come back in this game, I'm trying to pull it up right now. The 2 touchdown drives. Hold on. Bear with me. 5 plays, 75 yards, 2 minutes, 13 seconds, 9 plays, 46 yards, 3 minutes and 15 seconds, chunk plays to those periphery on the outside, and a bit from the running backs as well. So it was a nice, supportive, holistic effort from that offense. I thought the weaponry had a good game today. And again, it's a shame that we have the black mark because those are also wins, right? Stephon Diggs wins. The offense wins in their call, and then they don't get the call that should be awarded based on the execution from your team. But they showed up tonight. It's a shame we don't have a win, but they showed up in a big way.
How about that third down? Gabe Davis catches 2 yards short of the sticks. And
that's what I would...
carries Sean Murphy Bunting for 4 yards.
That was fourth down.
But yeah, sorry.
Fourth and two.
Fourth down. At the spot where they wouldn't have even made it to overtime.
No, right. I was yelling because he came back to catch it. And I was like, no, you're short. And then he turned and put his head down. And I was like, drag him, never mind. And the sideline was pumped. Like, that's a heady play and a good physical play. Those are 2 things you want to see in a young player, them being able to do something because of the physical gifts they have, but being able to tie it to what's going on mentally for him to know, like, let me come back, catch the ball with my hands. I got to turn back and get upfield and get the first. And even the touchdown he had too. That was a nice handsy catch. I believe it was Carlton Davis who was on him, almost got a piece of that ball. Davis caught it with his hands and used nice, strong hands and ripped it and brought it into his body. Man, it's, it was a great performance from them. Very good.
Aaron, talk about the combination of, have you ever seen an offensive line with the differential between the performance in the first half, where there was literally no rushing attempts, 3 sacks, 9 quarterback hits in the first half. In the second half, 0 sacks, 2 quarterback hits. Josh consistently had time in the pocket, and they created rushing lanes for the rest of Josh's yards. But not only that, 7 carries by the running backs for 64 yards. That combination and that swing was not something I expected.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm still not happy about this offensive line. I think it's the Achilles heel of this Buffalo Bills.
It's the reason the first half was the way it was.
All the problems cascade from that O-line. Like Greg said last week, they all cascade from the O-line.
Totally. And not particularly super happy with both lines when we get onto that side of the ball either, but second half much better. I do think, as much as people want to come out and yell about play calling constantly and on Twitter, whenever things not going right, it's play calling. What's Dayball doing? What's this happening? I actually think play calling helped the offensive line in the second half quite a bit. I think offensive linemen talk about it all the time. They want the ability to run block, right? Like it's not fun to just sit there and back up and take on these super elite rushers, especially some of the guys on the other side of the ball on Tampa Bay. And when you have a free blitzer come in, or some of the stunts caused confusion in that early in that first half, that's not fun to sit there for 25 plays in a row and just do that and not be able to establish any type of physicality. We've talked a lot about soft and physicality and things like that. These guys need that. And you saw, I think once they came out in that second half and established some run plays, put the defense in a different position, they're now playing, okay, well, they're willing to run. Now we have to play for the run. So they're not bringing as many guys. They changed up some of what they were doing, not just fully pass rushing. I think that helped. I also think Josh still saved them a little bit in that second half. I think he took over, got out of the pocket, extended some plays a little bit more. He was getting pressures in both halves, but that first half he was getting pressures and not seeing them and staying in the pocket, and those were ending up in sacks. In the second half,
there were at least some pockets. There were legitimately a handful of plays where there was the normal clean arch. And I will say, this is an unfair correlation to say, hey, here's why. But for as much as people complain about why the Bills rotate so much on their defensive line, the Buccaneers are one of the examples people go to as the opposite, where their top four guys play a huge amount of snaps. Jason Pierre-Paul sometimes plays the most snaps of defensive ends. Shaq Barrett doesn't come off the field. They lost some juice at the end of that game. They were dogged. Like when they took that one timeout, that I was like, strategically, it was a horrible
Tom Brady,
timeout.
you could see him voicing like, what are we
He
doing?
literally looked up and was like, timeout?
Like that was a horrible timeout usage in that, they tackled Beasley inbounds. The clock was running with 1:09 left. But don't take a timeout there. Their defensive line was so dog tired. They had to spend a timeout. So again, that's not to say that, hey, I wish we didn't have Vita Veas and Ndamukong Suh's and Shaq. I wish we had guys that were so good we never wanted them to come off the field. But one of the reasons you want your defensive line to rotate is that you don't want that at the end of a game.
But I do think that also the threat of the run opened up a shorter, quicker passing game, which also helped with some of the things that we saw in the second half of him not getting sacked and not being put on the ground as much. So all of that play calling that we bitch about in the first half also goes into play in the adjustments that they made in the second half, and making the defense, they dictated to the defense, is something that Eric talks about a lot, of making the defense do what they don't want to do. So I think that helped. And that's what they're going to have to continue to do. The offensive line is not going to change. Whether or not John Feliciano is at guard, that's probably the only change that may happen or not.
Yeah.
The results probably aren't going to be a whole lot different most times. So they've got to be able to, within the game, figure out what the defense is doing and sort of, make up for the weak link. We talk about the weak links within the offensive line. Well, that's the weak link of this offense. So they're going to have to make up for it, whether it's Josh getting the ball out quicker, utilizing that run game in different ways to take some of the pressure off them in the pass game. But definitely a much better second half. But Josh is still, at the end of the day, it was not a great performance from this offensive line. A lot of mistakes were made, and Josh is definitely going to be feeling it tomorrow because of the mistakes.
Anthony, any other thoughts on the offensive line of the blocking?
The Achilles heel, just like Aaron said, and I mentioned it when he was speaking. Greg, I think you nailed it several weeks back, that I think a lot of the issues, including red zone inefficiency, like trickling it all the way down, like they all start from the offensive line and they cascade from the offensive line down. The first half was rough. They were beaten mentally and physically, miscommunications, even the simplest things of like,
simple stunts.
Yeah, there's five guys come in. We let someone free. Oh yeah, the simple stunt where there was between Williams and Brown. They both took the spiker. No one grabbed the looper. And then you got a free rusher coming at Josh. And
I commented on the one they highlighted when Spencer Brown had that killer like pancake block where he got two guys on the one run.
Yeah, David and White.
Literally the next play, he completely olayed a blitzer coming around the court.
Yeah.
The next play. And I'm like, hey, man, those pancake block highlights are awesome. I sure wish I could get a highlight in pass blocking. That'd be cool too.
I put out the video of that I found that video and put out the video of the nice run block, and the one I'm going to put out after this, I just didn't get time before the show happened, was the one it led to the Josh Allen interception to Sherman, but he just gets completely ghosted by Shaq Barrett. Barrett gives him a fake hard step inside and just goes right around him like he gives him a Euro step in basketball and just completely goes.
Which is what you don't want a rookie on. Like, this is part of the process.
I can live with those. I can live with him getting beat on like advanced counter moves from experienced pass rushers. And, I'm not happy. Like, I'd love for it not to happen. But the bad handoffs, the false check inside, and then, oh, crap, I got to hurry up and get the guy that's going around me. Yeah. Those are the ones that kill me. The ones that are miscommunications and just bad decision-making kill me. If he gets beat on a really advanced counter move because of an experienced rusher, that's what happens when you start a third-round rookie. I'll live with those. Yes. The stuff where it's bad communication and bad handoffs from the looper coming around, like, we can't have that. Like, you just can't have those. That'll get Josh killed. Those ones kill me.
1,000%. I wrote it down, but I don't think. Yeah, there we go. So again, this is the guy, Spencer Brown.
Is there pee on that? Was there pee on your floor?
No, that's in the bathroom. Listen, the bathroom's a war zone. This is fine. Spencer Brown's a guy who, no disrespect, like, he played at the University of Northern Iowa. He played.
He hasn't seen a Shaq Barrett.
No, he played 8-man football in high school, and he's really only got 2 years.
Yeah, there's no Jason Pierre-Pauls in Northern Iowa.
No, and not an 8-on-8 football, and he's really only got 2 years of meaningful snaps, and really only one. So he opted out in 2020. 2019, he had 939 snaps. 2018, he had 335. 2017, he had 71. He's still very, very, very green. But you see on certain plays, like when he can pull or when he can execute on those full blocks, you see the athleticism and the physicality. But then to Greg's point, you see him get beat by these top-notch guys. And I don't want to give him a cop out, but like, it's not his fault. He shouldn't be starting right now. And the fact that he is a testament, negatively, I suppose, to what this offensive line is. They needed him. Correct. They needed this raw rookie that hasn't even seen some of the pass rush moves that are being thrown at him in games. And that's where you're going to live and die with. You're going to have that instability from him. But as a whole, it was nice to see the offensive line flash a little bit. Darrell Williams looked good pulling. Mitch Morse looked good pulling when they finally were able to execute some of those pulls. Got some nice down blocks from Dawson Knox and Spencer Brown, and then seeing Morse and Williams pull to lead their guys around the corner.
Two of those quarterback power sweeps were gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
They sniffed out the one. They sniffed out the one real bad.
Yeah, they nailed that.
They knew it was coming, but the rest of them were nice.
1,000%. And the one that Singletary set this one up beautifully, the one on the big Singletary run where he set the safety up outside and then cut back inside off the block, another gorgeous one. So it's nice to start to see some things from the offensive line. I give that as a testament to the coaching. Hopefully that continues. They saw some things that worked and are like, let's keep going to the well with that, because we need it, because this offensive line, that's also part of it too, of why you don't, for everybody said, forget the run, let's just keep passing it. You can't with this offensive line, because teams that can rush the passer, and even some that are just mediocre at it, are going to get to Josh. They're just going to pin their ears back and tee off. There is a reason why you need to have some semblance of balance.
That great post-game comment from Brandon Staley about the value of the physicality and, like, honestly, just throwing meat to your offensive lineman. Like, nobody wants to drop back 100% of the snaps. You want to go forward and hit the other guy and, instill that dominance.
And analytics say you don't need running to set up pass, play action, but that doesn't mean you don't need running.
I'll even say there's been a couple of really good comments. Ben Solek made did a rant on this. People have taken that study too far.
Yes.
What the study said was you don't have to have a great run game to have effective play action.
Correct.
What it didn't say was
it's
not as good. Yeah. Like, having a good run game has a positive correlation to better play action. What it said was you can still have play action with a bad running game. You don't have to,
but not running the ball at all.
Correct.
No. That's what people have gone
with. And the better that you are running the ball, the better you are at play action. There is still a correlation with that.
Yes,
it's
1,000%.
just that you can do it without being great at it.
You can't just completely go to one. No team is just going to be 100% one-dimensional in any regard for anything ever. Especially, not in this league. Especially when you have an offensive line that is suspect in pass protection at times.
Yeah,
the Bucs might be able to get away with it.
Yeah, maybe.
That's fair. But I mean, but even they
potential marketing idea for you here, Anthony.
Disguise coverage sounds like a podcast that would be sponsored. Well done, Omega Outlier.
That depends,
because you never know. We can reach out to him. We can reach out to him.
Hey man, I'll take it. Whatever sponsor.
No, we're open to all sponsorships. All
sponsorships.
Yeah.
Even with Brady though, like if the Bucs can be that team that can just pass it nonstop. Aaron, you're a big DVOA guy. They're number 2 in rush DVOA this year. So when they do run it, they're effective. Like you have to do it and be effective at some point.
Totally.
So now to our sponsor for the Uncle Jumbo's spotlight player of the game.
Not depends, Uncle Jumbo's.
Not depends.
Not depends. Whoops.
Well, yeah. Hey, it depends. Let's just for fairness, let's take Josh Allen out of the equation here because I think unanimously it would be really hard for him not to be the spotlight player of the game across the board. We gushed appropriately. Historic performance. Again, just to reiterate, the 4th player in NFL history with 300 yards passing and 100 yards rushing in the same game, 67% completion percentage, 3 total touchdowns. Unbelievable game. Willed them back while injured. Just an incredible performance. I'm going to give a shout. I was torn. I'm going to go with Gabe Davis. The combination of the gutsy physical touchdown catch and then that angry run on the game saving 4th and 2 to be able to convert there, 4th and 4 I think it was maybe I think 4th and 4 and he came back for 2 yards short and then got the 4 yards more for a 5-yard pickup. I'll give him a shout. Just a guy that I've been torn. There were some plays where you didn't see him with the nuance and the route running to get open. And I was nervous when I heard Emmanuel Sanders went out with the knee injury. And he certainly showed up in 2 huge spots and used the gift that he does have. What he doesn't have over Emmanuel Sanders is route running, creating separation, being able to be that nuanced, advanced receiver. What he does have is an immense physical frame and a physicality that nobody else in this receiving core has. And he displayed those critically on those 2 plays. Aaron, who was your spotlight player?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. And I've been kind of not pounding the table, but I've been on this get Gabe more involved in this offense for the last few weeks. I think he's earned it. And I do think Emmanuel Sanders, I'm nervous about that too, but I do think he's sort of gone in the other direction. I think Gabe Davis can take up those snaps. But for my spotlight player of the game, I think I'm going to switch it over to the other side of the ball. And even though they didn't have a great first half, I'm going to go with Dane Jackson for my spotlight player of the game.
Awesome call.
This is obviously
way better than if Anthony had said it first.
Yes, I've said that. Well, yeah.
I knew he was going to pick up. He's a middling DB who had a great game. Like that's Aaron all the way.
How could you not? Yeah, a middling DB had a great game. How can it not be Aaron's spotlight?
It's what I like. I can't help myself.
It's who I am.
No, and honestly though, we were all panicked about him coming in this role. He didn't beat out Levi Wallace, so that was a big problem. Everybody was like, well, this guy's obviously no good. This was the game. This was the game where I was most worried about Levi Wallace and Dane Jackson being out there with these wide receivers, and they got him a couple times, and mostly in zone. It was actually mostly in zone that they were gotten. But the few times that Dane Jackson was targeted and along the sideline, he held his own. He got the defensive pass interference. A little touchy. It's a tough call. They didn't call it that way all night, right? They didn't call it for the Bucs that way. So
did they not?
Yeah. So it's hard to get too mad at that.
Pre-show, Mike Evans attacked through Levi Wallace. If anything, from a technicality standpoint, he interfered and with Levi Wallace.
No, I don't even get me started on that one because I was waiting for people to come attack me about Levi on that one and be like, "Oh, turn your head." Like, yes, turn your head, but he made no contact. Correct. With that guy. He was just step for step with him. So that would piss me off.
And he actually did look back earlier in the route.
Yes.
He looked back earlier in the route and knew when to get his hands up. That's actually why it was such good coverage. He knew the ball was coming, was trying to get himself in position. God.
Yeah, it was so bad. But we saw a number of times with more physical guys, Dane Jackson along the sideline making a play to break up passes. I thought, and he had a number of nice tackles in this game. He came up, outside of that one terrible run early in the game, the Bills were pretty good in run defense, and he was a big part of that today. So my hat's off to him, because that was the toughest test of having this Levi and Dane as the cornerbacks, and unless they play, Kansas City, if they make the playoffs, this was the tough test. And so now I feel a lot better about this cornerback group going forward to finish out this season. So my hat's off to Dane. He answered the call for me and gave me some confidence going forward this season.
Yeah, Josh was the one for me. Aaron is a thief and took Dane Jackson, but that's also mine. Like we had so many questions. Aaron was spot on. He was good. He was physical in the run game. He made a nice one-on-one stop on Leonard Fournette. He had good one-on-one coverage opportunities on Gronk. Like, that's a hard thing to do. We've seen Tre'Davious White struggle with that. Like, Dane Jackson showed up today. Did he get beat a couple
almost
times?
Had that pick. That almost pick was beautiful.
So close. So close. Like, I wanted that one, but he had a strong game. He had a really strong game against a good wide receiver grouping and a very good quarterback with an offensive line that gave Brady tons of time. So he had the opportunity to pick apart the coverage at times. Dane did not get picked apart. I like the way he responded a lot, but just for the sake of being different, Matt Milano, nice game, knifing into the backfield, seemed to be everywhere, was good in coverage. I know he had the one holding call on him late in the game, but he was a beast.
Biggest sack in the McDermott era.
Huge. Like that was that's a coaching piece too, right? And Romo finally nailed it. He was off on a whole bunch of stuff in the game for stuff on the Bills. He was like, "Oh yeah, that was a design run," and it was like, "No, it wasn't. It was a scramble."
Yeah.
Like, what are you? Talking
I was yelling at my screen like, "No, it wasn't. That was a scramble."
He's done that a lot, and I hate that because then everybody's going to be like, "Yep."
He doesn't know what a QB designed run is. Did he ever pull one of those in his life?
Literally, never.
What is he doing? I wanted to be like, "You scrambled all the time. Why? What?" But to each his own. But Milano had that sack and Romo nailed it. Like, they ran a stunt.
Yeah.
What it looked like. I want to go back and confirm because now I don't trust Romo. But the spike inside, Milano comes up and loops around perfect. And he made consistent plays in the backfield. Even in the run game too, like attacking, causing chaos. He is that disruptor role on this defense. He may not always make the tackle or get the sack, but he is constantly causing problems. Even the he drew that holding call on the running back, on Ryan Jensen, the center. He gets yanked down, falls into Brady's legs. Brady wanted the roughing the passer call, but it was because he got held. Constant disruption from Matt Milano, showing why he got paid what he got paid. So yeah, it was a good performance for him, but Josh is my one, and then Dane is right there with him, especially given what the expectations were.
Love it. Love it. So as we kind of pivot over, looking at now the defensive line, I thought the defensive line was okay. They didn't give up a horrible game rushing. Obviously, the one long touchdown early on. Beside it, the rest of it, they were actually pretty solid. They were getting there. Again, this was probably one of those games that is going to look better in the PFF numbers than in the box score, where people are going to get frustrated because we only got home twice on Tom Brady, and one of them was really kind of a give up play where he was kind of scrambling forward, and it technically counted as a sack, but it was like a 1 yard loss. One was the critical play we'll get to when we get to linebackers. But, I thought that the defensive line was okay today. I thought that they got some pressure. The one obviously highlight, Jerry Hughes is right there about to get a sack. He looped around. He beat his man, get in around the corner, misses, and Tom Brady runs for a 12-yard gain on that play. So a pretty good synopsis, honestly, of what
there was another
season.
Almost sack before that big sack that you were talking about, where again the Bills get their hands on Brady.
Yes,
and
had him there, and then he gets out third down conversion. That was a third down conversion.
Yes,
too.
and then it ended up being a no play because there was 2 penalties. But still, the Bills just had. It's a thing. It's a thing. Yeah. They just get to the QB, touch him, and then it's not.
Well, and that play is the frustrating piece of it, because I think we do a good job, and I think Aaron, you do a really nice job with this. That hey, look at the statistics that get rattled off of players when they're passing under pressure. When you're getting pressured, it has an impact. The ones that crush it are when you almost get there and it doesn't cause a negative play because Brady runs for 12 yards or scrambles out and finds Mike Evans at the sideline to toe.
He didn't even scramble out. He just backed up and chucked up a prayer, and it just, I was like, can you get the F out of here?
Those are the ones that kill you, where man, if you were able to get home, there's no chance of a negative a negative defensive play, a positive offensive play. If you just get home, it doesn't matter. You take it off the board, and there's no possibility of it. So, it's what's there. Anthony, for these linebackers, anything else for the defensive line you can add, but I think I got really frustrated that on any negative play, I'll use the touchdown run as the example. In my mentions, when I wrote what happened on that play and got frustrated with it, like everybody else, 13 different people replied back only mentioning Tremaine Edmonds.
Of course.
That was the only name they mentioned, not the fact that Matt Milano got blocked so completely on the backside of the play, he wasn't even in the screen.
My guy, Taron Johnson, was a part of that.
Taron Johnson over pursued and just got washed out. That Jordan Poyer came flying in way too aggressively and slipped his feet out from underneath him. And that Micah Hyde was going for the ball for 15 yards and was like pawing at him from the 15-yard line. And he scored. Nobody mentioned any of those things. No. All they mentioned was, Tremaine Edmonds was in the hole trying to fit the run and got blocked. That's the only thing anybody mentioned. Like 6 other guys failed on that play for that to happen. He wasn't great tonight. He had some flaws. He had some issues. Out of anything I'm going to defend him for. On that run play, he was bad. He was just one of 6 people that were bad. On the final play of the game, I believe firmly we're going to confirm when we see the play. That wasn't Rashad Perriman wasn't his man. I think there was a mix up on the backside and that he left his man to chase
to try and make
help on the play.
Could be.
That was not
if
his
it was
man in coverage.
If they were in cover 1 and he was on Perriman, then we have a big problem.
That's a failure by Leslie Frazier. Like
Rashad
Perriman's probably their fastest player on their entire roster.
Yeah.
So I rambled about the entire front 7. Anthony, take it for either spot that you want to comment on.
No, you're good. You guys touched on everything with the D line. Like, they made some plays. They didn't make some plays. It's unfortunate that we've seen so much investment in this grouping from a free agency and a draft capital standpoint that we're not seeing the return on investment, especially when you're seeing, maybe I'll speak for myself here. I liked Tryon and Owe a lot more than I did Rousseau and definitely more than Basham. And to see those rookies making plays a lot and then not seeing it from our rookies and seeing Epinesa not make that leap that we thought he would. In addition to the free agent guys and everybody that's been here. I did like Ilianku. I thought he played well at times when he was in there, like strong at the point of attack. Harrison Phillips had some good reps, but again,
Phillips flashed several times for me.
Yes, 1,000%. Ed Oliver flashed a couple times, but then also had a couple stupid, foolish penalties, kind of like the things that he did while he was at Houston.
He still gets too emotional sometimes.
Yep,
he still gets too emotional.
Which was on him at Houston when he had that
like
whole sideline blow up. Just a young...
Yeah, no, that's a great call. Honestly, that's a great call. That's some fair. Gary to him.
Yeah, Gary Hughes. But yeah, you guys nailed it with that. Linebackers, I spoke about Milano. He had a great game for the most part. It's a shame where we are with Tremaine Edmonds. And I think what's so frustrating with it, right? Like we've shown so much film as a brand of like the good plays that he makes. And not once have we said like, dude's an all-pro, killer. He's amazing. But he definitely gets too much hate. And what's unfortunate now is we're at the point with Tremaine Edmonds where as soon as he makes one bad play, everybody's just sitting and waiting for him to not be perfect so they can jump and be like, see, I told you, he's terrible, he's terrible. Cut him. He's awful. Yeah. Now,
guess which 2 linebackers were responsible for Josh Allen rushing for 109 yards today?
Could it be Levante David and Devin White?
Because it's Levante David and Devin White.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. It's crazy. Like, guys get beat sometimes, even the really great ones. Or, I mean, he blitzes in, knocks that ball in the air, and almost gets intercepted, and no one talks about what a great play and a quick blitz and all that type of stuff. They don't talk about that.
Look what happened to the Steelers defense. They have a great linebacker. Look what happened to their dude. Got carved up in the run game this week. Like,
Devin Bush was terrible against Minnesota. So guys get beat, and I understand the inconsistency with Tremaine. I still think he gets far, far, far too much hate, and I am staying on that hill firmly. That being said, he did not have a good game tonight. I'm not even going to go into everything too much right now, but because I want to see the all 22. But that third down to Fournette, he shoots the gap. He's got him. He has him. And Fournette, what's even more frustrating, because I kept watching it. I don't know why I did this to myself. Fournette doesn't even juke him. Fournette covers up the ball and just leans like he's like, all right, I'm dead to rights. Let me hold on to the ball. And Edmonds just one-arm shoulder tackles him, and Fournette just breaks through, gets held up by Poyer. I don't know how that was an automatic first down, but that's an argument for a different time. But Edmonds can make that play right there. He's not even blocked. He shoots the gap. This is an area, his biggest problem has been over pursuit and his ability to let blockers get into his body and not use his length, and his ability to disengage, stack and shed, make plays, right? You don't have to worry about anything on this play. He sees, he reads, he reacts, he shoots. It's one-on-one, stick. And how many other times in this game, Romo even called out a couple of them, the one-on-one open field sticks, not tackles, sticks did he make on Fournette and Gronk. He hit them, and they went right down, and there was no forward progress. And he has a chance on this one to just make that play, and he doesn't. He did not have a good game. But again, someone's probably going to see this and be like, there you guys go, always babying him.
Homers, freaking homers.
You guys just can't see it.
So, speaking of homerism, let's go on another rant here, Pierre, for a moment. Before we get into the DBs, Robert Enders here saying, so tired of having to play two teams every week. Horrendous refereeing tonight, and it cost us the game. Inconsistent as hell. Allen is king. Obviously, great ending there.
The king of the North.
I think we've been good about not using refereeing as a crutch. There was one other game I think we ranted a little bit where it was rough. Maybe Tennessee. I don't remember which one.
Yes. And there was a couple times in Pittsburgh. Couple things.
Yeah,
in Pittsburgh
we ranted a couple times.
But Tennessee for sure.
Tonight,
there was like 75 holdings on Derrick Henry's huge touchdown run against Tennessee.
Tonight was one where the frustrating part wasn't egregious mistakes. It wasn't that, that was just a horrible call. It was the gross inconsistency between the two sides. If you're going to call Dane Jackson for that DPI in critical spots, but you're not going to call Carlton Davis in the end zone in another critical spot on Stephon Diggs, where there was far more impact on Diggs' ability to get the ball. And then you go through the combination. I don't know if Leonard Fournette got the first down on that play. It was very close. How in the world, in an open green area where it was not perfectly lined up on a hash mark or a yard marker, do you not measure? The first down was at the 31-yard line. It was not at a clean yard marker where, look, the nose of the ball is over the white line. We can visually see that this is there. You were eyeballing it down the line and just said, nope, don't worry. Don't need to measure. Let's just go ahead and do it. And the critical part was I did not expect the overturn in the review because it was an obvious error. But you want to know what it also wouldn't have overturned? If they had measured it and it was an inch short, they also wouldn't have overturned it because there was no freaking conclusive evidence, but you didn't know because you didn't measure. So it was close enough that the people in New York radioed down to say, no, we need to take a closer look at this, but it wasn't close enough that you geniuses on the field needed to measure it to find out if it was actually a first down or not. That's just...
not even the measurement, straight first down.
I firmly 100% do not believe the NFL is rigged. I don't think that Vegas and the storylines and narratives of the league take over and that the league wants it and is rigging it to be Brady versus Belichick in the Super Bowl. But crap like that is so annoying because it gives those idiots ammo. And it looks like it is. It looks so ridiculous that how do you not stop and pause in that moment to do those? And just those things where, like Aaron said before, I went from being frustrated and I used the Endgame Avengers Endgame gif with Hawkeye, where he's sitting there in the rain and saying, don't give me hope. And like when they were starting to come back, and I was so mad, we'll get to it in a minute here with McDermott, and I was so mad at the team and I was so mad about everything. Like, don't give me hope. And then they come all the way back. And then just don't be a part of the game. Just don't play a part in the outcome. Like, or if you're going to do it, be consistent in the way that you apply those things. But to have the most critical play on our third down in the end zone for the touchdown, hey, we're going to let the guys be physical and let them play today. But then in their critical third down, you let Mike Evans attack Levi Wallace and give him the flag. Those kind of things drive me nuts.
Or this one. This isn't pass interference.
Wait,
And for the people listening, it's a picture of Diggs.
it's a picture of
jersey
Stephon
being
Diggs
held
getting a
out.
wedgie
Yes,
from Carlton
literally
Davis.
being grabbed. It's just and
His
there's
shirt sticking a yard out from his
it's
body.
bad. And there's a
And when
lot
Deion
of calls.
Dawkins did that to a defensive lineman a couple weeks ago, we talked about how egregious it was, and they did call it.
Yeah,
Right. Like
yeah.
they saw it and they
Yes,
called.
and that's I see a lot of people in the comments talking about like make more plays and you don't need the refs to be an
Absolutely.
For sure.
And
Absolutely.
that is
The
correct.
You can
Bills
overcome
dug
them by
themselves a
winning.
hole.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dug themselves a hole they shouldn't have been. But in those moments, those calls still matter. You're right. It
That's
would be
it.
better not to put it in a position where they even can
Scoring more
impact the
points
game.
fixes everything.
But
Yes.
they did all the other right things. They still won the second half 24-3 in a dominant performance and had a couple critical things taken away from
That's
them.
exactly
they
what it
did
is.
make the plays in the
Yes,
second half.
they dug
Yeah.
themselves a hole. Should they have been better? Should they have been in a position for the refs not to impact the game? 1,000%. But you cannot deny that the refs had an impact on this game. Because also, if there's some calls that go the Bills' way, Tampa Bay is in this exact scenario where all their fans are saying, well, score more than 3 points in the second half. The refs impacted this game. And they're like, the refs are like a stage crew for a Broadway play. You shouldn't see the stage crew. And if lights are falling everywhere, then they're all of a sudden part of the show. And you're like, uh-oh, that's not good. They should just be in the background. They are part of the game. They should not be on the forefront. They do not get monologues. They do not get songs. They do not open and close the show. We should not be talking about them. And it is very fair to say, if you don't want the refs to impact the game, be better. Got it. But that had an impact on this game. And it's hard for everyone to be perfect. And what sucks is when you're not perfect and you're still finding a way to execute and be in the game, and then somebody does some nonsense that gets you back out of it, that's extremely frustrating. And it had a huge impact.
If it's a really hard job, an inexact science, and you're not 100% sure, bring out the chains and measure.
That's a big one too. Like we keep talking about the pass
Use the
interference
things
ones.
that you have access to.
I don't get how, if you wanted to, if they spotted it and they measured it, fine. How was it such a clear and obvious first down that you were immediately like, oh yeah, first down? Like not even a measurement.
Oh,
Not
by the
just-
way, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood here commenting, why didn't McDermott tell the ref to measure it? He was screaming at the referee to measure. He was livid that they didn't measure.
The
He
league's
was
gotten away
screaming
from
at
this.
them.
The league's gotten away from this in general of not bringing out the sticks, sort of league-wise.
It is a slowdown. It is
Yeah.
a slowdown to the game. You're right. It is.
But still, that's a problem that they're gotten away from it, right? Like the league is purposefully tried to not correct those situations with how they're calling games. My problem is, first of all, to Greg's point about the people that believe there's some grand conspiracy, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Majority of conspiracy theories are not true. It's
for the
just people's
Illuminati.
way of trying to make something make sense that they don't understand. The NFL does not have some grand conspiracy, guys. We would know about it if that were true. This is a league-wide problem, officiating. We just notice it because it's our team, and a lot of the times it does happen against our team. But yeah, they do need to put chips
Billions
in the
and billions of dollars.
Okay.
You can put and you want to know what's actually frustrating. It's not that they need to put a chip in the ball, because you want to know what? There are chips in the ball. Right now, there are. How do you think they know the RPMs on the ball and the amount of passing speed that it has and all those other elements?
Because there's nanites in the blood of the players.
There are measurement chip. There are chips in the ball. What there isn't are chips in the field all throughout the grid to be able to make it so they could confirm where it is.
You can just put chips in the lines. And
Yes, correct. So
chocolate
that's what they
chips.
would need to do, is to redo the field to figure out how to put sustainable, durable chips in the field to confirm when it goes over those key marks. That's what they haven't figured out how to do yet.
But
I'm going to get working on that.
Yeah. So but I just want Bills fans to know, like, it is frustrating when we see that. But the Bills have also had points in this year, and it just isn't something we talk about. The Bills have gotten some calls too. Like, there's definitely been some ones that I'll watch and be like, hey, you know what? You win some, you lose some, and it goes our way. And so our friend Lauren here says, no conspiracy, then explain how Brady is aging like Benjamin Button. The TB12 plan, guys.
Yeah,
Like, he's
yeah.
been trying to tell us for years.
Pliability. The key
Yeah.
is pliability.
There's something to it. Yoga, man.
All right, so
Yoga.
now that we've ranted for a moment, and I didn't know where to fit that in, so our lovely super chat able to do that. Aaron, why don't you go ahead and take us into the DBs tonight? Because I don't think Dane Jackson was the only one who had a solid game.
Yeah, no, I honestly, there's probably some plays that they all want back. I do think there were some big holes in zones at times and even some that favored the Bills where Brady just missed open wide receivers. So there's definitely, I want to get my eyes on the all 22 and figure out what happened on some of that. What did that say? Don't want to know. All right, we won't leave that one for the podcast.
The secret was yoga and aggressive open mouth kissing your children.
Yeah, that's weird.
Not great.
But no, I like what we saw out of these DBs. This was the game, like I said earlier, this was the game that concerned me the most about not having a Tre'Davious White on your team for these types of wide receivers. And this DB unit without him is giving me confidence going forward. We're not going to see a wide receiving unit with a tight end ability that this Bucs team has coming up. The rest of the year. There'll be some players that will give some mismatch fits, but not as a full unit. So I think that them meeting this test, if they get into the playoffs, that's a different story. There's some teams that can cause some problems, but I think Dane Jackson really stepped up real well. And here's a hot take for you guys. I want to draft cornerbacks every single year, but if Dane Jackson can continue to play like he did and Levi plays like he did, and I'm still very much on, hey, extend Levi Wallace. I think that he's earned it this year.
Agreed.
Get that out of the way. Don't even go into free agency and leave that hole. Get aggressive. Get him back on this team. And then you can continue to draft late round corners and continue to develop.
Aaron, no.
Dude,
Aaron,
if we get Tre'Davious White back,
don't leave me here, Aaron.
I'm telling you, man. Hey, I'm off the draft running back round 1 too, so I'm changing all my mindset. But no, I think they've done a good job.
A guard and a one-tech defensive tackle and a slot receiver.
Trenches.
I could
draft in the trenches.
Trench warfare.
Trench. But Jordan Poyer had a great game. He was all over the field, flying around, making plays.
Another great comment here. If Jordan Poyer doesn't make all pro, then yes, I will scream conspiracy.
Yeah, what's going to be tough for Jordan is I think that Micah Hyde is used against him. I really do that. The benefit of how good both of them are is used against them both as a whole. Yeah. Whether that's fair or not, I think that it's not crazy. That there's some optics there that it's used against them, but I believe he is an all-pro. I think he's a Pro Bowler as well. Micah has made some mistakes as of late. He's been part of those couple big runs that we've seen here, but he's still playing good ball.
I don't, like I said, I ranted early a little bit. I don't love the idea of punching at the ball for 15 yards. You made contact with Leonard Fournette at the 15-yard line, and he scored because you were up at his shoulders pawing at the ball. Tackle him.
I know Sal, I don't know how to say his name, Sal Mariana or whatever, the guy from Rochester, got on Hyde for that one touchdown, but it's like, dude, there's not a whole lot. That was a dime by Tom Brady to a 6'5" Mike Evans in the back of the end zone.
He was literally leaping without
stretching. You see how he caught it? Yeah, he caught it with he almost dropped it. He got it on his fingertips and his finger bent back and he curled it.
And he's 6'5" with 35-inch arms.
Correct. And Micah Hyde was like a half an inch away from tipping that ball. So I'm not even
that was a ridiculous throw and a ridiculous catch.
Absolutely. So I'm not too worried. Dane blew his assignment on the last play.
So go ahead and read this, and then I have a screenshot ready.
Yeah, so it's Dane blew his assignment in the last play of the game. He was in man, not zone. Why? Coaching. Also, Edmonds playing Sam in college. Why do we continue to try to make him a middle linebacker? I'll tell you why. Poor coaching.
Thanks for the donation,
Brandon. I don't know if I'm ready to agree on the coaching piece of it. I get it. On the last play, as you see Perriman and Evans running a mesh crosser here, there's supposed to be a handoff between Dane Jackson and Levi Wallace. Right. They both go with Mike Evans. No one goes with Brashad Perriman. I don't know the coverage to know which one was if Jackson was supposed to stop and pivot back, or if Levi was supposed to carry through and take it. I'm going to guess, just a guess, that the new starter just coming in, that Dane Jackson was probably supposed to break off and pivot back, and that, again, Tremaine Edmonds sees it happening, tries to turn and chase, but Tremaine Edmonds isn't going to catch Brashad Perriman. No. Brashad Perriman's literally the fastest guy on their roster.
No, this is Edmonds' fault, and because it's outside and not in the dome. That's why this happened. Also,
but yes, this is the play, and we'll see it when we get the all 22 to break it down. It's possible Levi was supposed to carry that. Yeah. My guess is that Dane was supposed to pivot and break back, but one of them they weren't both supposed to go with Mike Evans.
I know there's a lot of things to talk about with coaching, and Brandon, also thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. One, and also thank you very much for the donation. I don't know if Dane Jackson blowing an assignment, granted, it's a very critical play. If it was true that he blew the assignment, but him blowing an assignment on one, correct. Is it unfortunate that it happened on the game-ending play? Yes. Is it outweighed in terms of frequency by the amount of good plays that he made in this game? Yes, he made many more good, sound plays than he did mistakes and errors. If this was an error, and that's an if, then it's very unfortunate. The timing is terrible, but I don't think you can take that and blame that on the coaching and like that's McDermott's fault or Frazier's fault or so on. And even if it is one of their fault, it's outweighed by the multitude of other good plays they made in this game. It's unfortunate that it happened to be in that area, but I don't think you can put it all on. You can't take one mistake and just look for one person to blame. That's not necessarily the right thing, and then use that.
That was a great play call to have that mesh concept.
That's what it's supposed to.
That's a great play.
Do.
What you're hoping
confusion.
For
you cause
is a confusion in coverage, and that it breaks something, and that here at J&J kind of joking that yes, their plan was that Tom Brady can throw a 6-yard dump off and have the guy take it 50 more yards for a game-winning touchdown, but ultimately that's what it created.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Anthony, anything else on the DBs before we move on?
No, I think Aaron hit it spot on. I'm just, again, really, like we've said multiple times, I am encouraged by how Levi and Dane Jackson held up in this matchup. The Bills unit as a whole, the defense as a whole, aside really from Tremaine Edmonds and I guess Ed Oliver, they don't have a ton of and maybe Milano a bit. They don't have a ton of explosive athletes or guys who are physical freaks or guys who are very fast or very big or very strong or any of these things. They are
the only RAS relative athletic score. The only RAS freaks are Tremaine Edmonds and Ed Oliver.
Exactly. They are a team of everybody. All jokes aside, everybody does their 1/11th. They are a team that is the sum of its parts, and they are all technically sound and they play well together. They will struggle from time to time against guys that are either very big and very strong, like DK Metcalf types, or guys that are very fast, like Tyreek Hill types. Tampa Bay kind of has a mix of it. Godwin is very fast, and he's a tremendous route runner. Mike Evans is another pterodactyl human being, much like Tremaine Edmonds is, and he's also a good route runner, and he has good hands. They could have very easily been outmatched constantly when the ball was in the air. Even Gronk, again, to take it back to what Dane Jackson did, Gronk is a mismatch. If you're Brady or any quarterback, you see Dane Jackson one-on-one with Rob Gronkowski, I'm going to spam the hell out of that matchup over and over again. I am encouraged by how this secondary played. And again, it would be awesome if we could talk about it after a victory, but it is what it is.
So as we pivot over and look at our West Her drive of the game, this is another one where Aaron, at halftime, I'm not 100% sure that we were going to have one of these. But luckily, in the second half, there ended up being multiple opportunities. It's kind of funny. I almost am. I want to pick the last drive in regulation where they get all the way down there, and it would have been awesome if it was the game-winning touchdown. It would have been the runaway choice, but I still think there were some critical conversions. That awesome play by Gabe Davis, the leak play to Dawson Knox, the courageous run by Josh Allen. So even though it might be the first time all season I've picked a field goal drive, I'm going to go with that one as our drive of the game. Again, would have been amazing if it ended on a touchdown on that pass to Stephon Diggs or a first down because they got another couple shots at the end zone because they correctly called the interference. But ultimately, that was a clutch drive where there were multiple opportunities for it to really fizzle out and to not follow through on the opportunity. And that 14-play, 70-yard drive to tie the game in the end of regulation and complete the 21-point comeback. I'm going to go with that as my West Her drive of the game for my nomination. We'll go to you next, Aaron.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the drive literally right before that. And I'm not talking about the offensive drive. I'm going to go with the defensive drive right before they were able to get that. Did I take it from you? This is awesome. This is the best day of my life. I'm stealing everything from Anthony. You have momentum. You score. We're trying to make up for Sean McDermott punting in that scenario. I was thinking, how are you going to get all these possessions back? Brady's going to drive the field. They're able to go, I think it was 5 plays. So they did get a first down, but they went 5 plays, 10 yards. It took only a minute and 48 seconds off the clock. There was that big third down where, again, frustrating. The Bills have their hands on Brady. They don't get the sack. Offsetting penalties, run it back. that's where I think my heart rate went up to the highest level of the evening, where I was just on the edge of my seat, couldn't get enough. And then Milano comes up with a big sack, makes it a 4th down, and the Bills get the ball back and continue the drive that you just mentioned. So for me, it was the defense getting them in the position to go down and get that game time field goal.
That's the exact same for me, and I'm not even going to pick one to be different. Those are the top 2 I had, but the defensive one was my number one. 5 plays, 10 yards and a minute 48, like you mentioned. And the huge thing, again, they get that stop on 3rd down. They get the penalty on defensive holding on Matt Milano. But there's also a penalty on the Buccaneers, so they run it back. That would have been an easy moment to be like, well, that was their opportunity. Bucs got the 1st down, 4-minute offense, run it out. They get that Milano sack. They get the ball right back. You could even I also thought of the defensive drive before that where the Bucs went 3 plays, 1 yard, 59 seconds. Yep. But the reason I didn't was because Brady had Godwin wide open. He just dirted it.
He missed
and didn't make a good throw. Yeah,
that was a
gift.
gift.
100%.
Yeah.
So
but the Bills took advantage of that gift.
1,000% they took advantage of that gift. So, I mean, the defense, again, the Buccaneers had just the Bills on the ropes in that first half. Everything they were doing seemed to be working, whether they was the run or the play action or the pass. They were getting things. They were pushing the ball a little downfield. They were working in that intermediate. As Jason mentions there on that comment, that 2-minute touchdown drive where Knox got it was incredible as well. That's the play we talked about earlier. That little,
five
leak.
plays, 75-yard touchdown drive. That one, because it happened in 2 minutes and 13 seconds, was critical.
Gorgeous. Yeah. A lot of good plays from Knox in this one. But for me, the defense looked off kilter and outmatched in the first half. And then there were several drives in the second where they just kept the Bills in this game. And I mean, they only gave up, those 3 points in the second half. They gave up the touchdown
so soft.
and not physical and not that's also like I know we mentioned it again. That's a huge takeaway. And I don't care what everybody's trying to say, like, oh, you guys are good losers or bad losers, or the Bills are a joke, or this team runs the division, whatever. That's stupid. Shut up. Like, everybody came and kept saying how this team was soft and this team packed it in and this team couldn't answer. They got rocked hardcore in the mouth.
Right in the mouth.
Done. Over and over. And it was 24-3. You try to double dip at the end of the first half. You throw an interception. And then you hold again. And then you come out in the second half.
And Sean McDermott makes a huge mistake. And you continue to hold.
Huge mistake. Yes. Everybody's yelling at you like, oh, if you're going to go for it, why not keep the offense? What a stupid call. Everybody knew it was going to be yada, yada, so on and so forth. And you literally pick your bloody carcass up off the canvas and you punch back and you throw jabs and you throw haymaker after haymaker and you put yourself in the position to win. It sucks that we lost, but we could have just done an entire episode talking about that. This was a big moment that this team fought back.
And for context, by far the best offense in the NFL.
Yes.
Was shut down in the second half of this football game.
Number one overall.
It's not even
number
close.
2 in rush DVOA. And I think they're number 1
3 points
in
the entire second half.
Yes.
I mean, obviously the touchdown overtime, but
Hall of Fame quarterback,
30 minutes.
Blood wide receivers, a great offensive line, a running back that people forget was like one of the top prospects to come out of high school, then dominated college football. And everybody thought, well, the Jags let him go, so he's washed. He's not. He's still a monster, and his legs are fresh now. This offense is good, and the Bills punched back as a team.
We're talking a 4-play drive, a 5-play drive, 11-play field goal drive, 3-play drive, 5-play drive.
How about the answers in the red zone from the defense, forcing multiple field goal opportunities? This game could have gotten away from them early, but they fought and they clawed, and I hate referees.
Yeah. And I will say, J&J is right here that we now need to see more of that. They need to start
from the jump.
They need to be aggressive and figure out what they got right, how to do that,
and stop giving up 60-plus yard runs.
Yes. But we'll go there now as we pivot over and now are done with the Western drive of the game. We go into coaching. I lost it in the early third quarter here to the point that I did several things I never ever do. Like I was so
you swore
apoplectic about Sean McDermott's decision, and they're going down. This is with 2 minutes left in the third quarter. The Bills are down 24-10. They had gone down and scored, made it a game. Josh threw the ball against the wall. Have all fired up. They go and they get not a 3 and out, but only 5 plays in the 2-minute drive to get Tampa Bay off the field. And they go in and have the ball. They get a first down. They're moving a little bit. They get it up. It's 4th and 3 at their own 45. They had all the momentum going. They're out there ready to line up. And with 15 seconds left on the play clock, McDermott calls for the punt to have to rush on, to the point that they barely got it off with the referee that stands in the way when you're substituting to let the other team substitute.
Yeah.
Barely gets it off. And it was one of those plays, just in every sense of it. You had the momentum. You know you're going up against a historic quarterback in the most efficient offense in the NFL. And punting at that moment meant your plan, your strategy was that they were never going to score again because you only needed 2 more possessions to tie it up. And that if they punt, if they score at all, you need a 3rd possession anyways. And that you're not guaranteed to get that with that amount of time left. Now, I will say, in hindsight, they did. They ended up getting enough possessions to do it. But in that moment, you didn't know you were going to get that many possessions. And the combination of the analytics, the message it sends the offense, the way that they handled that, the last minute waffling and flip-flop to go back, I almost never swear, and I was swearing both in our DMs for our group and on Twitter. I wrote to you guys and texted to you guys that screw it, we're starting with coaching because I need to rant and get
I
mad
saw
about
that in my
this
text.
first thing. I never change up the order of how we do the post-game show. So I'm ultimately glad that so many other things happened that it took the attention away from it. But that play, and I'll throw in, hey, if you're going, I don't mind a fake punt here or there. It's interesting. If you show up and you can see they are in safe mode with defenders back off the ball and they're not coming for it, because the only way you're going to get it is kicking Breida to the outside because you have them in the right punt rush formation because you're going to get him around outside before they get there. Those 2 plays were just really frustrating early on. I thought the time management late was really good. I thought his usage of timeouts and when he called them was really good at the end. Lots of good play calling by Dable at the end. Many of them made up for it of how bad that first half was. But that moment in the second quarter, I am as big of a Sean McDermott apologist as what exists on the Twitter website and in the Bills Mafia content creation universe. I was so mad. I could not believe he did it. And it still is something that's going to gnaw at me, knowing he's capable of making that decision in that critical moment. It bothers me that that's what his mind said was the right thing to do.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, you said it very well. And it's frustrating because a year ago, the Bills were leading the league in these decisions, these aggressive decisions.
Literally the top ranked in not only when to do it, when not to do it.
Right.
They were number 1 in every analytical category.
So I don't know what happened between now and then. I don't know if there's a lack of confidence in the offense, but it's very frustrating. But there's 2 things here, right? Like, you can be frustrated with Sean McDermott and that decision in game and some of the decisions he's made in games this year, and also not go so far to want to fire Sean McDermott. That is totally crazy. Anyone that
notice I didn't say that.
No.
I was as mad as I've ever been with him.
Right.
I'm still not an idiot and wanted to fire him.
No.
People were, as they saw my brain melting, they were like, "Oh, welcome aboard to the fire McDermott train." I'm like, "No, you're an idiot. I don't."
Yeah,
want
no,
that.
this is ridiculous.
I'm just mad at him.
Yeah, no, this is ridiculous. The
not
fire
breaking up.
McDermott train, no matter really what happens the rest of the season, I really don't care. The wheels could totally fall off this thing, and Sean McDermott's coming back. Like, this is ridiculous. That conversation needs to die. I might even have to start muting people that are in my mentions with the fire Sean McDermott stuff. That's totally crazy. The way this team fought back is a representation of what Sean McDermott's built in this organization and in this building. Like, he, by almost every standard, people talk about him as one of the better young coaches in this league. Like, that's not a mistake. That's not just coach speak or league speak. Like, he really is that guy. He's made mistakes. And so hopefully he's got that giant notebook of his. He can go back in that notebook and find out whatever was working for him last year and the rest of this year going forward, learn. And, he's a big growth mindset, right? We talk about growth mindset all the time. Hopefully he grows. And, he talks about players making mistakes and growing and learning from those and wanting plays back. Hopefully this is one that he wants back and that he gets with whatever analytics staff he has up in the booth and they figure this out. Because I don't know, I'm sure those analytics guys were even telling him like, no, go for what are you doing? And
there's a reason they were out there on the field first, and it was a last minute pivot.
He made a last minute gut decision. That was a wrong decision. And this is one of those moments where I do wish I put it out there. If the Bills lost by 3, that I wanted him to sit in an hour or in a room for 2 hours with Jerry Sullivan and have to just answer questions over and over again. Because that is one of these times where he really needs to be accountable for it and answer to that.
Yeah. Here, Richard asking, do the Bills have an analytics guy?
Department.
They have more than a guy. They have an entire department. The Bills have a 6-person analytics department led by Luis Guillermo, who is the director of analytics and application development. Dennis Locke is the director of football research and strategy. My understanding is that Dennis Locke is the guy in McDermott's ear on game day. They then have 4 more guys on that staff, both from an app development standpoint and data mining and data scientist standpoint, going through. I've talked to Evan Weiss, who is the football analyst on there, and some of the stuff that they're doing. So they not only have a guy, they have an entire department that does that, and they have a guy in McDermott's ear, Dennis Locke, throughout the game. I don't know if it's constantly all 60 minutes or just in those critical moments, but he is piped in directly to Sean McDermott, and my understanding is he is giving him the percentage win likelihood impact metrics that you see put out there on Twitter saying, hey, this one's really in our favor. Hey, this one's a 50-50 gut call. It's whatever you think, coach. Hey, this one's telling us we should really go for it. And I will say in that moment, 4th and 3, third quarter in your own side of the field is not one of those 90% slam dunk. It's very much probably a 55-45, 60-40 kind of decision. It is. I saw the numbers. It is in favor that you are supposed to go for it. It is not a slam dunk. However, all the other things going on in the game and the fact of who you're facing, it was absolutely a unacceptable decision at the time of the
especially since the drive before you only stopped Tampa because Godwin was open, and that was when where Brady dirted it. So it's not like
and he had a couple of those bad throws there that saved us.
Even the one right before that to Gronk, he could have completed. It was just from outstretched. You didn't show that's funny from the comment there. Maybe they need an analytics lady.
Yeah. Hey, I'm open to all creative solutions.
Best decisions in my house are made by women.
Nice. Well done. Cheers to Aaron's wife. In hindsight now, it's okay, that was the right call. The defense showed up and they had an adjustment coming out of halftime and things were working. But 1,000% in the moment, I don't get why you don't go for it there. And you guys nailed it for all the right reasons. That's a funny comment there. I actually want to go back to this comment.
Bumps and say, do they have an analytics department analyzing the analytics department? I like that.
That's very funny. I want to pull up this comment here from John, who said, you like watching McDermott consistently make the wrong calls on 4th downs? I don't. You like watching all the cowardly field goals and punts? I don't. Fire his ASS. I just want to, so in-game decisions are a big thing and they're important, right? But here's the thought, right? Look at the Buffalo.
Gross overestimation. Gross overgeneralization.
1,000%. But let's look at things in a vacuum and let's make a generalization and take one specific positive example, right? The Bills secondary, Dane Jackson, 7th round pick. Levi Wallace, undrafted free agent. Micah Hyde, tossed away by the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Poyer, a no-namer that we brought in. Who do you think is decently responsible for the success of that secondary rounding into form? Granted, Frazier's played a role in the position coaches. Sean McDermott, because he did the same thing in Carolina and he did the same thing in Philadelphia. Yeah. He's got a lot of positive qualities and a lot of positive traits. Is he perfect? No. Is any coach perfect? No. For as great as Bill Belichick is, and everybody wants to anoint him and crown him, how many horrible draft picks has Bill Belichick brought into New England over and over again?
Andy Reid had 15 years of terrible clock management and late game decision making.
Literally a running joke.
Yes.
Yeah. A running joke in the league was that Andy Reid was the worst time management coach in the league.
Yes. Bad. Guys make mistakes. And is he perfect? No. And And John with another comment there, like, it's just foolish. If you really just want to jump on somebody to make yourself feel better, to find one easy thing to pinpoint so you can make yourself feel better about a loss, go ahead.
Yeah, firing Sean McDermott is how you end up with a 20-year drought.
Yes.
Firing
Besides the fact we just
there.
ranted about what a horrible decision it was, and that Aaron wanted to put him in Jerry Sullivan timeout for 2 hours.
I would want to do that to anyone.
Like, we're holding him accountable.
Yeah.
It's like saying, hey, I can be mad at my kid and not put them up for adoption.
That's
I
exactly
can get in a disagreement with my wife and not get divorced. I'm an adult. I'm capable of having disappointment and frustration and being upset in my life and not having some overreaction decision because it's going to make me feel better in the moment and then go, oh God, what are we going to do? We can't find a coach as good as Sean McDermott.
Yeah.
Grow up.
It's just to and I see some comments coming through that we're okay with mediocrity. We are not at all. We've done a fair amount.
No, we did that for 20 years.
Yeah, and actually, even we've criticized to the point that even when we're winning, people think we're being too negative because we said Isaiah McKenzie isn't good in his decision making when in returning kicks. It's just, if you want to nitpick at someone to make yourself feel better, go ahead. Our thing is, we recognize what needs to be worked on, but we're not so myopic with our viewpoint to the fact that we're going to get lost in that moment and thought. There is a bigger picture to the things that are going on. And if you don't see it, that's completely fine. If you want to find one person and blame them, that's fine. Do you? But
firing people is not the only accountability when it comes to this stuff. Firing Dable because there's a bad game.
You can't tell we're holding him accountable. The lead off of this segment was how horrible his coaching decision was to not go for it on 4th down. But again,
I will show you my sternly worded letters written to one Bills drive.
Greg, you nailed it spot on. Like, you're mad at your kid because he did this. You're not going to be like, all right, you're done. I'm taking you back to the hospital.
I considered leaving my kid at Get Air today. I did. I really did. You guys are better people than I am.
Just go leave your kid in an hour by himself at Home Goods, and he'll never disobey ever again. It's a nightmare.
Can we pivot and talk about Matt Hawk and this punting game and the special teams?
The greatest punter ever.
I would love to gloss over special teams. You know, I hate talking about it, but dude,
I didn't know he could punt.
He had a good game.
I didn't know that holder Matt Hawk could also punt.
So he had one iffy one. He had one iffy one I didn't love, but the other 5 in the game were really, really good. 4 inside the 20, no touchbacks, and his final punt in overtime, from the results, the moment, the importance in the game, might be, it is going to be hyperbole. It might be the best punt in Bills franchise history. Like, in overtime.
Yeah, the results didn't end up
against Tom. Correct. It didn't end up being the reason we won. So people aren't going to remember it that way. But in a critical moment where we absolutely needed it, Matt Hawk had a 63-yard coffin corner punt to the Tampa Bay Bucs 6-yard lines, out of bounds with no return in overtime. It is like a video game to do that. That is the greatest punt of his career. Spin here. Matt Hawk was saving that punt for his entire career. I have been just ragging on this dude all season. He's been inconsistent. He started the year horribly. I will say the second half of the year, he's actually been pretty good. He actually has been pretty solid. He's been what they wanted. He's never going to be short of the one in overtime tonight. He's not a 60-yard punt guy. He doesn't have a rocket for a leg. What he has started doing is way fewer returns, way more out of bounds, way more fair catches, way more pinned inside the 20. That's what they want, is just positive impact. And good Lord, was that punt amazing.
I do think, too, it's in Bills fans' heads that he's some ridiculously slow punter. I've been watching other punters because of that, because it bothers me, because there's no stats on time to punt.
My only stat is he has 1 blocked punt in the last 3 years.
Correct.
And 2 in his career, over 360 punts.
Yeah, it's rare.
It's not a thing.
It's not a thing. And I looked at that too. The sample size that it's not like this guy has had 3 a year for the last 3 years. Like, this is not a thing where he's much slower than everyone
It was in
else.
his first 4 punts as a Buffalo Bill.
Correct.
That sucked. Like, at that point, the sample size numbers look bad.
But
since then, we've shown
I'm
it's not
so sick of hearing every time they put like, oh, I'm worried they're gonna have a block punt because he's the slowest punter to ever play the game. Like there's nothing to back that up. There's no data to back that up. Block punts are super rare. It just sucks that he happened to have one, like you said, in the first 4 punts of his career.
Otherwise, I think that overall the coverage was solid. There were not a lot of great returns from there. I think that Darden had one halfway decent punt return. Otherwise, both kickers made all their kicks.
Stevenson's been disappointing so far for me.
Yeah, his 29-yard kick return was solid. Nothing special on the 2 punt returns, but ultimately those were both good cover. It's not like there was a huge opportunity that he blew. He got positive yards on both of them. He got 4 yards and 5 yards on the 2 punt returns. There was good coverage. There wasn't anything special there. He certainly hasn't added a spark, but I will say I didn't mind the way that it was tonight. He was secure in getting the ball each time.
No bad decisions.
No bad decisions. He didn't let any bounce that were bad. And he let Isaiah McKenzie focus on offense where he was a positive impact.
I think that's a big thing too. Like we know from a decent amount of sample size now that whoever the returner is, McDermott likes to have that be that person's role. It's not like, oh yeah, they're going to do that in addition to doing something else for the offense or defense. So if Stevenson, him being secure with the ball and decision-making is a fantastic thing. If he can continue to do that, that's huge for special teams. If he can have the explosive returns, that's even better. But even if we just take the smallest, I don't even want to say that to make it seem minuscule, but even if we take the smallest upgrade, which is it allows Isaiah McKenzie to be more of that niche player and focus in the offense, I think that's a big win. If we can continue to get back into the jet sweep and orbit motion game and all the little gadgetry that we can have from Isaiah McKenzie, especially which may be needed if Emmanuel Sanders is dinged up for a legitimate amount of time and we have to pivot on offense in terms of the passing game, I think that's a huge win. But yeah, everything else was spot on. Matt Hawk was fantastic. I almost wanted, if I wasn't superstitious and tied to the position that I was in, I would have gotten out of my seat for that huge punt.
Yeah, that's great. So we've now gone through the entire game. We've ranted about coaching.
This might be our longest episode ever.
We have gone about as long as we've ever gone.
Yeah,
that's what she
Aaron,
said.
what are your final thoughts for the people?
Yeah, so, I mean, going into this game, Greg, we talked about it on the preview show. I did not expect the Bills to walk out of Tampa with a win. Tampa Bay is a great team. They made it actually much closer. Like I think I picked 31-27 Tampa. So Tampa won by more, but the Bills made it actually a much closer game than I expected. Dominated the entire second half of this football game on the road, clawed their way back into a comeback. All these things, in my opinion, I'll probably get roasted for this on this moral victory thing. Those are all positive things going forward for me, that this team was able to claw back, showed some grit, showed some guts, and showed that they can play on par with, in my opinion, the best team. What does this say? Important question I haven't heard yet. Aaron, did your wife question any McDermott calls in this game? Honestly, my wife's a champion, and she took care of my 2 little brat kids the entire game, and they were jerks all night long. They were fighting each other. They were throwing tantrums. It wasn't cool. She made me dinner. She did everything for me and kept the kids out of my hair. My wife,
she's watching the All-22 right now.
No, right now she's watching Desperate Housewives of Beverly Hills or something like that. She's catching up on some Bravo. But I'm going to go give her a nice massage and make her some tea and kick her legs up because my wife is a champion. And shout out to all the wives of content creators because we can't do this stuff without the wives.
Mine did my treat.
Yeah. His wife's picking up pee out of his bathroom.
Yeah, no, I'm doing that on my own. I'm going back for that. I own my mistakes. I'll course correct.
But back to this team real quick. I believe that they can win 3 out of the next 4 of these games. I believe that they can win 4 in a row and run the table for the rest of the month. But that starts with huge performance against, in my opinion, maybe the best team in the NFL right now, playing the hottest football, where they came out and dominated the second half of that game. I do think that leaks over into this next month of football. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be some
where Carl's head's at. The Bills had won 8. They had gone 8 weeks alternating wins and losses. They broke the streak. So now they can strung losses together. Now they can string wins together. It all makes sense.
And Greg, we've talked about this now for a couple of years. It's get hot at the right time, take a winning streak into the playoffs, and anything can happen. I'm still firmly on that. I don't think the season's at a total loss yet. We're going to see in the Hunt graphics. We're going to hear this team's a fraud all week. We're still going to hear people talking about that this team's soft. I think that they've busted a lot of those narratives, and I'm excited. I'm very excited to see the next 4 weeks of football and how the rest of this plays out.
The same teams fighting for playoff spots lost to the Browns today and lost to the Vikings this week and lost to the 49ers today. And, there's a lot of other teams in critical must-win situations that also dropped frustrating games that they couldn't afford to lose. The Bills fought with the best team in the NFL, went to overtime, had a chance to win the game. They didn't. They need to do better. They need to find a way to be able to do it.
For Joseph here, guys, we lost. Losing is not getting hot. I'm not saying they're hot right now. There's problems, but I think they can take the momentum from the second half and then get hot. The schedule's very much in their favor, guys. I still believe they're a better team than New England on neutral ground. I think they're better than the other 3 teams that they play. So there's a perfect opportunity to get hot right now this next month.
Yeah, you want to have some fun with it. The Bills beat Carolina next week and root for the Colts to beat the Patriots. The division is still on the line in that game.
I don't want to do that. I want the Colts out of the way. I want the Colts to take a loss.
Sure. We'll get into rooting interest as the season goes. We have plenty of time to get into rooting interest the rest of the way. Anthony, what are your final thoughts for the people?
Similar to what it was in the beginning, losing always sucks. It is not fun to lose, and there are no moral victories and so on and so forth. But the way you get better is course correcting and adjusting and taking positives and improving on those positives and mitigating those weaknesses. If you cannot see the Bills' second half performance in this game against arguably the best team in the NFL, from whatever metric you want to use, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are arguably the best team in the NFL. Aaron and I love DVOA. They are champs at DVOA. Yeah. I think it's the best metric out there. They are fantastic.
I think they're still the highest for Super Bowl in Vegas, right now?
Yes, they're the highest odds in Vegas.
So that's a really tremendous football team, and you played them on the road.
I was going to say the other team that I think is probably the best is Green Bay. They're getting smoked by Chicago right now.
Are they right now?
It was 24-7. They just scored to make it 24-14.
Things happen all the time, and by no means is having a loss ever like the good thing as opposed to a win. Everyone would prefer to win, but if you cannot see this loss and take away positives from it and think that there is something to take from it and go forward with it, if you are only blinded by the fact that a loss is a loss, I'm sorry, but you're not doing anything for yourself and you're not looking at it the right way. And maybe that seems foolish on my part, or it's a dickish comment by me. That's completely fine. You have to realize how long of a season this is, how much time there is left, and also perspective. Look at the rest of the teams in this AFC. Nobody is perfect, despite the fact that the Chiefs completely waxed the Raiders today and looked to be a decent amount back. There is no team in this AFC that is without faults and is without flaws. And what the Bills showed today, if they can do that going forward, and again, there's all these ifs, and that is completely fair, but the Bills showed a massive, massive, massive thing today in the second half. And taking the loss sucks, and it is definitely a bigger thing than the moral victory and all that stuff, yada, yada. Sure. But there are a lot of positives to take from this game. A lot of positives. Even just the simplest fact that the Bills had a good defensive performance in the second half without their best defensive player in Tre'Davious White. They had a very inexperienced second-year corner and an undrafted free agent hang with some of the best receivers in the NFL. There's just so many positives. And if all you are seeing is they lost and the record is 7-6, good job, Joseph. You know how to read a raw stat box. Congratulations. Break down film with me and tell me how to fit gaps, and then we can talk football, and I'll have a great time with it. There's positives to take. We'll see what happens. Go Bills.
I think that we've gone all the way through it. It's, Brandon here talking about it's about getting a win when we need to get one. We have the easiest schedule in the NFL. We're 7-6 with 0 wins against a winning team. That's actually not accurate. The Chiefs have a winning record. We have wins against them.
Also,
their last 4 games were not the easiest schedule. They had the easiest schedule to start, and then as that goes on, I hate strength of schedule. As it goes on, it changes. It changes throughout the year. They actually went through a really rough patch this last 4 or 5 games.
But also, nothing that's happened previously in the season is a guaranteed indicator or dictator that they are going to be that team for the rest of the year. There is a chance that they turn the corner from this second half performance and you move forward. First of all, also thank you, Brandon, for the donation. But that's like looking back at So if you're going to use their previous performance this year from a negative perspective and go forward and say like, oh, well, like they're not going to do anything inexcusable. You could do the same thing when they were riding hot. You could be like, well, they're never going to lose a game again. You can't ride those extremes. You have to take sustainable moments from both wins and losses. You have to take those sustainable moments and then try and accurately predict what can happen going forward. The Bills have plenty of positive, sustainable moments that show they can potentially turn this thing around. Do they still have faults? Yes. Is the offensive line still a weakness? Yes. Does the defensive line need to improve? Yes. Does Tremaine Edmonds need to be more consistent? Most definitely. But are
Sean
there
McDermott
other
need to stop punting?
Yes. Does McDermott need to be better in-game moments? 1,000%.
Yeah.
Those are all over here. But
And
are
they
there also
can.
positive? Correct.
Yeah.
They can. And there's also positives on the other side. It's just looking at them and trying to figure out those sustainable pieces and going forward from there. And however you want to look at it, it's fine. But it's just...
Yeah, it's everyone makes up whatever they want to tell themselves about. The Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. I think, pretty comfortably right now. They're the best team. The Bills beat them. So it doesn't count that the Bills beat them because they were having a rough time at that point. Just like they smoked the Dolphins twice. The Dolphins beat the Patriots and now are the hottest team in the league, but it doesn't count because so you're right. When teams lose, they're not playing well. That's how that works. Just like Tampa Bay lost to Taylor Heineke and Trevor Siemian in back-to-back weeks. It doesn't mean they were all of a sudden a bad team and those wins didn't count because they were having a rough week. It's still the same team. That's how that works. That's how games work in the NFL. It's a week-to-week league. Jordan, thank you very much.
Appreciate that, Jordan.
That means a lot. Teams, when the Titans lost to the Jets, the game still counted. That's how this works. That's how the NFL works.
This is a good one, and we forgot to bring it up. First of all, thank you for the donation, Robert. Robert's comment is thoughts on kicking the field goal for OT and not going for it on 4th and 2. Didn't see it mentioned, and we didn't. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Should they have tried to go for it a la Tennessee? Or
from an analytic standpoint, it was a coin flip. I will say I was in favor of kicking it because they had all the momentum. They had taken control of the second half. The defense was playing well. You had a shot at it. Going for it there is equivalent to simply gambling. Like that, hey, we think we need to just gamble on this as one play. And then it would have been like you had a chance to convert, but that you were
putting if you get it, you win.
All your eggs in that basket of just literally a coin flip. Like you have about a 50-50 shot to score on that. They were taking into account that they were playing really well in that moment, being able to go through there. They did win the toss in overtime. And that, again, didn't get a call in another spot, but they convert. But that's what you wanted. You wanted to go into overtime, get the ball, and then continue on like you had just done. They had scored on 4 straight possessions. That's what you want. That's
and if in that position, if you go for it, don't get it, the field's so much shorter for Brady to get just into field goal range to win that game. I think that, and then you turn around and get a huge punt. Like, I don't know. I have no problems with the decision there in that moment. I thought the defense was going to make a stop too.
Sure. Yeah. So ultimately, the final thoughts here, it's a loss. It's a loss that would have been really critical and it would have been a huge boost. I think the way they played in the second half can give some positive takeaways, that they can take some of that momentum and some of that positive, some of the positive outcome that they saw to then figure out, okay, how do we do that more sustainably over the remaining games? If they don't do that and they continue to go on this roller coaster and they continue to play up and down ball and they continue to be inconsistent, then the season's going to end. And whether that ends in wild card weekend or the division round, it's not really going to matter. Or it ends before that because they lose one of the stupid games to Carolina or Atlanta or the Jets. That they could just get knocked out completely and not be there. All those things are on the table. However, the thing that people seem to not acknowledge or realize is that they can get hot here. They can win these final 4 games and they can get in. And once you get in, nothing else matters.
Get into the dance.
Nothing else matters. All that matters is getting hot at the right time. And plenty of teams have gotten lucky, barely squeaked in, and then gone on a run because they got hot at the right time. That's the point where all this frustration about, man, but they're only 7-6. You got to be realistic and honest with yourselves about what kind of team this is. You're right. But if they get into the playoffs, everyone's record is 0-0. nothing matters. All that's going to matter is, hey, all of a sudden they were an underachieving team that got into the playoffs and got hot at the right time. And all of a sudden that underachieving became, oh, yeah, they are really talented. They did finally get their stuff figured out. They did get hot at the right time.
This is the Bills that we thought we'd see, yada, yada.
And then all of that can wash that away. They have that opportunity. Get yourself in the dance, give yourself a chance, and be able to go from there. But for tonight, the important part, make sure you give some love to our sponsors over at Uncle Jumbo's. I destroyed this bombsicle during the show tonight. It had no chance. If you need a car, make sure you're checking out the folks over at West Her, the largest auto dealership in the New York area, and our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Download the app. Check out the opportunity. There's a lot of fun things coming in New York State. Some new, coming with it sounds like online betting is going to be coming. It's going to open up even more options in Underdog and other things that Cover One's going to have going for you. But tonight, this was awesome. The chat was fantastic. We really appreciate it. Give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review. It really helps us out. But we love you guys. You guys are fantastic here tonight. On behalf of Anthony Prohaska and Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we